We tend to see our workplaces as islands of safety, where the ordinary day-to-day humdrum shields us from the unexpected. But what if I told you that, for some, the daily grind turned deadly in the most bizarre and jaw-dropping ways imaginable? Picture freak accidents so strange they sound like fiction and twists of fate so tragic they defy belief. Yet every one of these stories is terrifyingly real. Brace yourself, because these shocking tales of workplace deaths are as unforgettable as they are haunting. Number 10. The molasses flood in Boston. On January 15, 1919, a disaster struck Boston's North End when a massive storage tank filled with 2.3 million gallons of molasses burst. The tank, owned by the Purity Distilling Company, was 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter, and its contents were intended for alcohol production. The molasses was stored in the tank during winter, causing the liquid to thicken due to the cold. On the day of the disaster, unseasonably warm temperatures caused the molasses to expand, increasing the pressure on the tank's walls. The tank, already poorly constructed with thin steel and insufficient rivets, could not withstand the pressure. It burst suddenly, releasing a 25-foot-high wave of molasses that raced through the streets at 35 miles per hour. The wave of sticky, heavy syrup destroyed buildings, crushed vehicles, and swept people off their feet, ultimately killing 21 people and injuring 150 more. Some victims were drowned or suffocated by the molasses, while others were struck by debris. The cleanup took months, and the smell of molasses lingered in the area for years. The disaster led to several lawsuits and eventually tighter regulations on the construction of large tanks and industrial buildings. Number 9. The death of Owen Hart. On May 23, 1999, professional wrestler Owen Hart, known for his in-ring persona the Blue Blazer, tragically died during a live World Wrestling Federation WWF event, Over the Edge, held in Kansas City, Missouri. Hart's death was the result of a stunt gone horribly wrong. The stunt involved Hart being lowered from the rafters of the Kemper Arena into the ring using a harness and grapple line. A dramatic entrance meant to entertain the audience. However, the quick-release mechanism on his harness was accidentally triggered, causing Hart to fall over 70 feet into the ring below. He landed chest first on the top rope, just inches from a turnbuckle, and then fell into the ring. The impact was catastrophic, and Hart suffered severe internal injuries. Despite immediate medical attention and efforts to save him, Hart was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. His death shocked the wrestling community and fans worldwide, leading to increased scrutiny of safety protocols in professional wrestling. The event continued despite the tragedy, but Hart's death remains one of the most devastating moments in wrestling history. Number 8. The collapse of the Pemberton Mill. The Pemberton Mill in Lawrence, Massachusetts, was a 5-story textile mill that became the site of one of the deadliest industrial accidents in U.S. history. On January 10, 1860, without warning, the mill structure gave way, collapsing in a matter of seconds. The building was packed with over 800 workers, most of whom were women and children. The collapse was caused by several factors: poor design, substandard construction materials, and the overloading of the building with heavy machinery. The iron pillars that supported the structure were too weak to bear the weight, and the construction was rushed to maximize profits, leading to fatal flaws in the building's integrity. As the building fell, hundreds of workers were trapped under the rubble. Fires broke out from damaged machinery, engulfing the debris and complicating rescue efforts. Despite the heroism of many rescuers, an estimate of 88 to 145 people were killed, and another 166 were seriously injured. The disaster led to public outcry and brought attention to the unsafe working conditions in the burgeoning industrial cities of the 19th century, eventually leading to improved safety regulations. Number 7. The Titan II missile explosion. The Titan II missile explosion in Damascus, Arkansas, is one of the most dramatic and terrifying incidents involving U.S. military technology. On September 18, 1980, a maintenance crew was working on a Titan II missile, a Cold War-era intercontinental ballistic missile armed with a nuclear warhead. During routine maintenance, one of the technicians accidentally dropped a heavy socket, which fell about 70 feet and struck the missile's oxidizer tank. The impact caused a leak of highly volatile fuel. Despite the crew's efforts to contain the situation, the fuel vapor continued to build up. Hours later, a massive explosion occurred, blowing the missile silo's 740-ton door into the air and destroying the launch complex. The explosion killed Senior Airman David Livingston, who had been working to control the leak, and injured 21 others. Miraculously, the nuclear warhead did not detonate, which would have caused an unimaginable catastrophe. Number 6. The decapitation at Disneyland. On July 8, 1974, a tragic accident occurred at Disneyland in California, leading to the death of Deborah Gale Stone, an 18-year-old hostess at the park. Stone was working at the America Sings attraction, a rotating theater show that featured singing animatronic animals. The theater had a rotating outer ring of seats that would move the audience from one stage to the next while they watched the show. During one of the performances, Stone was standing near a narrow passageway between the rotating wall and a stationary section of the stage. As the outer ring of the theater began to rotate, Stone was caught between the moving wall and the stationary platform. She was crushed to death by the rotating wall, resulting in her decapitation. Guests who heard her screams initially thought they were part of the show, delaying rescue efforts. Following the accident, Disneyland temporarily closed the attraction and installed safety features including warning lights and sensors to prevent a similar incident from happening again. Number 5. The death of Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin, the beloved Australian wildlife expert and television personality known as the Crocodile Hunter, died on September 4, 2006, in a tragic and unusual accident. Irwin was filming an underwater documentary titled Ocean's Deadliest on the Great Barrier Reef. While swimming in shallow waters, he encountered a stingray, a typically non-aggressive species of fish. As Irwin approached the stingray, the animal suddenly lashed out, striking him with its venomous barb. The stingray's barb pierced Irwin's chest, puncturing his heart. The wound was immediately fatal, causing Irwin to bleed to death. The entire incident was caught on camera, though the footage has never been publicly released. Crew members quickly rushed Irwin back to their boat and attempted to revive him, but it was too late. Irwin's death shocked the world, as he was known for his seemingly fearless interactions with dangerous wildlife. His passing led to an outpouring of grief from fans and conservationists alike, but despite the tragic circumstances, Irwin's legacy lives on through his family and the conservation work of the Australia Zoo. Number 4. The chimpanzee attack. On February 16, 2009, Charla Nash, a friend of Sandra Herold, the owner of a chimpanzee named Travis, was viciously attacked by the 200-pound animal in Stamford, Connecticut. Travis had been raised by Herold and was well known in the community for his intelligence and sociability. However, on the day of the attack, Travis became agitated for reasons that remain unclear. Herold called Nash to help calm the chimpanzee, but upon Nash's arrival, Travis suddenly turned on her, launching a brutal attack. The chimpanzee mauled Nash, inflicting catastrophic injuries to her face and hands. The attack was so severe that Nash lost her nose, lips, eyelids, and both hands. Her injuries were so extreme that they were initially described as life-threatening. Herold tried to stop the attack by stabbing Travis with a knife and hitting him with a shovel, but the chimpanzee did not relent. Eventually, police arrived and shot Travis, who later died from his injuries. Nash survived the attack but was left permanently disfigured. The incident raised significant concerns about the dangers of keeping wild animals as pets and led to stricter regulations regarding the ownership of exotic animals in the United States. Number 3. The death of Thomas Midgley Jr. Thomas Midgley Jr. was an American chemist and inventor whose contributions to industrial chemistry were as impactful as they were controversial. He is best known for his role in the development of leaded gasoline and the discovery of Freon, a chlorofluorocarbon CFC used in refrigeration. However, both of these innovations would later be linked to serious environmental and health problems, leading to Midgley being posthumously criticized. In the 1940s, Midgley contracted polio, which left him severely disabled. Determined to maintain his independence, he devised a complex system of pulleys and ropes to help himself move in and out of bed. On November 2, 1944, tragedy struck when Midgley became entangled in the ropes of his own invention. Unable to free himself, he was strangled to death by the device. Midgley's death was both ironic and tragic, given that it was caused by his own ingenuity. His inventions had significant unintended consequences, both in his life and in his death. His legacy is a stark reminder of the potential dangers of technological advancements when their long-term impacts are not fully understood. Number 2. The death of Jimmy Heselden. Jimmy Heselden was a British entrepreneur and the owner of Segway Inc., the company that produces the Segway, a two-wheeled personal transportation device. On September 26, 2010, Heselden tragically died in an accident involving one of the very products his company was known for. Heselden was riding a rugged off-road version of the Segway near his estate in Thorpe Arch, West Yorkshire, when he lost control of the device. The path he was travelling on was narrow and ran alongside a steep 30-foot drop into the River Wharfe. As Heselden navigated the path, it is believed that he reversed the Segway to make way for a pedestrian. In the process, he apparently misjudged the edge of the path, causing the Segway to slip over the cliff. Heselden and the Segway both plunged into the river below. Despite efforts to save him, Heselden was pronounced dead at the scene. Heselden's death was particularly ironic and tragic because it involved the very device that had brought him considerable financial success. The accident raised questions about the safety of Segways, especially when used in challenging terrains. However, the incident was determined to be an unfortunate accident with no evidence of mechanical failure. Number 1. The cockpit tragedy. Alistair Aitchison, a British pilot working for British Airways, and his crew almost tragically died in a highly unusual and terrifying accident on June 10, 1990. Aitchison was the co-pilot of British Airways Flight 5390, which was en route from Birmingham, England to Malaga, Spain. Shortly after takeoff, at an altitude of 17,300 feet, a catastrophic event occurred. The cockpit's left windscreen panel blew out due to improper installation during maintenance. The explosive decompression that followed partially sucked Captain Tim Lancaster out of the cockpit, leaving him pinned against the aircraft's fuselage. Alistair Aitchison, the flight's co-pilot, along with the cabin crew, reacted swiftly. While Lancaster was held outside the cockpit by a steward, Aitchison took control of the aircraft, which was plummeting due to the decompression. Displaying incredible composure under pressure, Aitchison managed to maintain control of the plane and began an emergency descent to a safer altitude. Despite the harrowing situation, Aitchison successfully diverted the aircraft to Southampton Airport, where it landed safely. Remarkably, Captain Lancaster survived the ordeal, suffering frostbite, fractures and severe shock. The quick-thinking actions of Aitchison and the crew averted what could have been a major disaster. That was some extraordinary bravery and skill in an almost unimaginable scenario. As we've seen, the workplace, where we spend so much of our lives, can sometimes turn into the unthinkable. These stories remind us that life can take the most unexpected turns, often in the places we least expect. But what if there are even more shocking stories out there, just waiting to be uncovered? If this list left you on the edge of your seat, then brace yourself. There's always more beneath the surface. Which workplace story shocked you the most? And do you think we've heard the worst of it? Or could there be even stranger tales out there? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. because the next story could be even wilder than the last. Also, be sure to check out our latest video on the most financially catastrophic divorces of all time.